Welcome once again to our show, and today we have a special show, the great mystery which is Christmas, or the nativity of our Lord, or sometimes just called the nativity. And thank you for watching. And if today is Christmas Day and you're watching, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And if you're not a person of the Christian faith, we still ask you to watch, because we think it's important to understand each other and understand what Christmas is. And if you're a Jewish faith, then please have a happy Hanukkah, which happened just a little bit earlier. Or the Hindus have the Festival of Lights, Diwali, which is about the same time. Muslims just had about a month or so ago, 2 months ago, Ramadan. And of course, you may not believe in anything. So maybe this show is interesting to you, to see what you might want to believe or what you don't want to believe. But whatever your faith is, we wish you during this season the best wishes of the themes and principles of Christmas, which are hope, love, and joy. And we wish you that to our viewing audience today. Best wishes of hope, love, and joy. Today we have a special guest, no stranger to our show. He's been on many times, and today is a Christmas tradition. Only the second one, but hopefully we do it into perpetuity until the second coming. Last year we talked about the divine condescension, which the early church fathers discussed, of God becoming a man and how God condescended himself. So it's a discussion of the incarnation. Now, of course, we're going to hit some of those same things because that's Christmas, but today we're going to discuss the great mystery this year. So this is the second annual Christmas show with the same guest, Father Loya, who is a Byzantine Catholic priest and the pastor of Annunciation of the Mother of God, Byzantine Catholic Church in Homer Glen, Illinois. He is an artist, a family of married priests, because Eastern Catholic priests can be married, I believe, a line of priests, your fathers and grandfathers. And also, we've had him on before to discuss Eastern Christian spirituality and the Eastern Catholic churches, because there's 22 churches in the Catholic Church, I believe, 22 separate churches, sui juris churches, all with their own rules and liturgies and rites. People mostly don't know that. And of course, one of his main focuses is religion on the environment, especially Christianity or Catholicism in the environment, and how the incarnation is important to dealing with the environment. And we've had shows on religion and the environment, which are very interesting. And his church is a green church with green roofs, permeable surface pavement, local indigenous wildlife, wetlands around the church. He had a whole philosophy and a plan they've implemented, and it's quite impressive. So if you get a chance to go to Homer Glen, visit Byzantine Annunciation of the Mother of God, Byzantine Catholic Church in Homer Glen. So let's get right in the show. First of all, Father Loya, thank you for being on our show.
Thank you, Frank. It's always great to be here.
Okay. Now, today is the great mystery. So what is the great mystery?
Well, the great mystery. In Ephesians chapter 5, St. Paul talks about this relationship of Christ to his church. He's really addressing husbands and wives, how to relate to one another. And he says that this is a great mystery, a foreshadowing of the great mystery. This mystery, first of all, let's look at the word mystery. Mystery means something revealed and something hidden all at the same time. In other words, something totally beyond us, and yet something present as well. Something we understand, we can touch, that's tangible, that's visible, and yet something that remains beyond us and invisible. And from time immemorial, as the scripture says, this great mystery was hidden until it was like veiled, until eventually it was unveiled by the incarnation, by God, the invisible God, becoming visible by taking on his own creation. The creator becomes the creature while remaining still the creator. And this is the one great mystery of anything, of all time. In other words, everything in life, all of reality, is a sharing in this mystery, a pointing to it, a manifesting it, an affirmation of it. Even the decisions that we make, the behaviors that we adapt to, that we take on, every choice, every aspect of reality affirms this one great reality, this one mystery. Or, on the downside, it tries to erode it or deny it or dilute it. Everything comes down to this: whether we actually see and live according to, I'm going to call it a sacramental vision. In other words, where we actually see God incarnate, God present in his order of creation, especially the human person. and especially in man-woman relationships, especially in terms of marriage, that we see God there, and that everything is a sharing in that. And if we see that, well, then we live according to that. That's why this is the one great mystery. There is nothing else. There is no other reality. Everything is based upon this. The whole order of creation, the whole order of what the church says, what the church teaches on anything, comes down to this one great mystery. And that's really what makes Christmas so mysterious, so incredible, so mystical. As you were saying before, other faiths, even people without faith, are caught up somehow in this ethos of Christmas, in light and hope and joy and happiness, festivities. It's almost like the offshoots, like the crumbs of the bread, are even delicious to people. Why? Because this mystery is so central, so fundamental. It defines who we are as humans. It goes to the very center of our being, to the whole order of creation. So, as I mentioned, this one mystery, that this invisible, infinite God would become containable, visible through His own creation, is just unfathomable. It's mind-boggling. The love of God, as the fathers of the church would say, His kenosis, His self-emptying, His condescension, that He would lower Himself like this. It's just unimaginable that this infinite God would become something finite while still remaining infinite. I mean, that kind of love is incomprehensible to us. We know some of it because God has allowed us to understand some of it. He reveals it. But yet, the magnitude of it still lies beyond it. And that's really what makes the mystery of Christmas, the charm, the mystical aspect of Christmas.
Now let me step back for a minute, because I know in Christianity, especially in Catholicism, there's a discussion of mystery, and especially in the Eastern Christian spirituality, Eastern Catholic, Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, they emphasize mystery. So what is a mystery? I know that seems very basic, but in terms of understanding the sacraments, certain theological points that are unexplainable, because how could everything all become finite? How could the infinite become finite?
Right, that's exactly.
And in fact, that's why some Jews and Muslims will not accept Jesus' divinity and even the concept of the incarnation, because they believe that it's impossible metaphysically, theologically, it's impossible, that it cannot be done. So God cannot be man. So they believe that either some Jews believe that he was a bad man, Jesus, or Muslims believe he was a good prophet, that he was actually born of a virgin somehow. You see that in the Surah Maryam in the Quran. But that he is not God, that he is not the Son of God. Even he's not the there's no incarnation, and he's merely a prophet. But before you discuss that, what about mystery? Because you see a lot in Eastern Christian spirituality the concept of mystery, describing sacraments, describing doctrines, and the like.
Yeah, mystery. Now, sometimes mystery is a strange concept to us, especially in the modern Western world, because we're very much influenced by the scientific rationalist of worldview and approach to things, and we have a hard time thinking in terms of how can something be this and that at the same time. It's got to be either or. We constantly swing between dualisms. It's Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. Or here in Chicago, are you a Cubs fan or White Sox fan? Never the two shall meet. But it's always like point, counterpoint, winner or loser. We kind of swing in a very bipolar sort of worldview. And that, if you notice, is not very healthy. Somehow it doesn't make sense. There's some other kind of way to look at life that is going to make more sense. It's going to give more of the dynamism to life. And
this
that
is the
way,
Cartesian thinking,
yes,
post-Enlightenment type of perspective.
That basically marks the ethos of our time and our culture. So we have a hard time thinking, how can something be this and that all at the same time, and to live just in the center where those two intersect. But that's precisely what mystery is. Mystery is something is this and that at the same time. You can understand some of it, but you can't totally figure it out. The key is just to live it. To live it, you live in that intersection of paradox, right? Where the two things, complementary things, come together. Just like God. God is divine. He is God and man. He is infinite, yet he makes himself finite while remaining infinite all at the same time. Now, to try to put that into our heads, to figure that out in our heads, is impossible. We can come to a certain understanding of it. We've had great minds, Aquinas and the fathers of the church who have tried to articulate this great mystery. But the key is in just living it accepting it and living in it, sort of basking in it, seeing everything this way, seeing all of life as revealing and participating in God, that God is actually in his creation. He's incarnated in, that's what incarnation means. He actually entered into his creation. He infused himself in it, changed the quality of creation while still remaining God. He never left. In other words, the incarnation, the great mystery, was not God moving from place to place. It was God being who he is, in the life of the Trinity, and yet entering into his own creation at the same time. Now the key here is when you believe that, you live that. Just let it be and live in that mystery. What we find, and this is sort of the proof of the validity of mystery and the incarnation, we find that life is so much more wholesome, so much more beautiful. An example, Frank, if we don't believe in the incarnation, if we don't believe that God really entered into his own creation, most particularly the human person, what does that open you up to do then? That opens the whole world of things that aren't so good. In other words, if I do not see that we do actually see or believe that we are made in the image and likeness of God, that God has taken on our flesh, incarnated himself in our soul and body. If we don't believe that he hasn't entered his own creation, then we can abuse the creation. We can pollute the creation. We can hate. We can kill. We can commit suicide. We can cause war. I can go on and on and on with everything negative that flows ultimately from denying or eroding this one great mystery. And that's why it's the great mystery. That's why it makes all the difference in the world. That's why Christmas is much more profound than we realize. It is fundamental to our entire existence, to right from wrong, from peace or war, from hate or from love, from caring or abuse.
Now, isn't a prerequisite, or at least understanding complementary, the understanding of a Trinitarian perspective of God, the Holy Trinity? Because for God to be finite and infinite, you have to have the three persons of the Trinity.
Mm-hmm. Yes, God, the God that we believe in, and he has revealed himself as such. It says Christ revealed himself as God. We don't just believe that God incarnated himself because we decide to believe it or make it up. A pope in Rome makes it up, like a lot of people say, he sits around and makes up things. That's not it. Jesus Christ himself revealed that and proved that. And it was foretold. It was prophesied for centuries before. And he fulfills that. So who is this God that we believe in? We can say many things about this God, of course, but the essential thing that makes all the difference in the world, that really brings across the value, the impact, the significance of this great mystery, the incarnation of Christmas, is that our God is a union and community of persons. He's a family within himself. He has a relationship within himself, yet he's one God. But the second person of that Trinity moved out from that Trinity while still remaining in the Trinity and entered into creation. And then later on, as he finished that task of incarnating himself, dying and raising our nature up with him, then he sends the Holy Spirit, the third person of the Trinity, to sort of animate then our lives and all of creation after he ascends and returns to his place in the Trinity. We have now still the presence of God, God present now, not so much in the incarnate person of Christ, but now present through the third person of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit that dwells within us.
But the incarnation of Christ sanctifies all of the creation, all the universe.
All of creation. That's why, if you notice in the iconography, even if people, if they think about manger scenes, we love the crèche, the manger scene. What's in the manger scene? Why do we like it so much? Is it just a charming scene? Well, yeah, it is, but why? Because in that scene, think about it, especially in the icons, the classic paintings, East or West, you have every aspect of the cosmos. You have heaven represented by the angels. You have the star. You have the star coming down miraculously. You have mountains. You have trees. You have human beings. You have animals. And you have rocks and plants and water. And you have the sum total of the whole creation there. Why is it presented there? Because it's saying that since God took on our flesh, and the human person, we are a microcosm of the universe. And the universe is like a macrocosm of the human person. So everything is summed up in us. So if God took on our nature, he therefore permeates all of creation and raises it up, raises up the quality of it. Creation becomes sacramental. This earth is the great, sometimes you call it the great garden of the universe. It is, but it's the great sacrament of the universe. It is the thing that makes God present. Because of the incarnation, the great mystery, this invisible God becomes visible, but tangible. We can touch God now. We can taste God. We can hear God. We can smell God, feel God. And it takes nothing away from his being totally transcendent. He's transcendent and immanent all at the same time. Again, mystery, the key about mystery is thinking in the both and, not the either or. And besides, God is God. He can do whatever he wants.
So both and not the either or, and that's a key to understanding, I think, Catholic and most Orthodox and Eastern Catholic, Oriental Orthodox theology, or at least especially Catholic, I think. So it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Precisely.
But there are analogies in logic. So, for example, ocean, somebody's in the ocean, I forgot which priest said this analogy. It can be shallow and deep. It could be cold and warm.
Mm-hmm.
If you also that story of the blind people feeling the elephant, somebody feels the tail, somebody feels the trunk, and somebody feels the legs. And so even through logic, we can get to a point where we can understand how logically, mathematically, possibly, that's possible.
Yes.
We just can't understand it in its entirety.
Exactly. You said you just described mystery perfectly, Frank, is that we can understand things to a degree, and God has given us that wisdom, and he's given us that grace and that permission to do so. In fact, he revels in how we grow in our understanding of mystery. But yet, there's always the part that is, it's greater than the sum of its parts. There's always that part that's beyond us. And that's the part that makes life beautiful and intriguing and dynamic and charming. And like G.K. Chesterton once said that he wrote a lot about mystery, and he said that mysticism, the mystical, the sense of mystery, is what keeps men sane. He says we don't go insane because we dream about things and think about things and contemplate things beyond ourselves. We go insane by trying to put everything into our head, trying to figure it all out. That's what makes us neurotic and sane and bipolar. But it's mystery that keeps us sane and alive and vibrant and full and creative. So mystery, just by living life, which way is a better way to live life? How does a person who sees mystery, and especially now, today, this mystery of the great incarnation, the great mystery, a person who sees that and lives that, what is their life like? What is it that they contribute to humanity and to this world? It's everything good and beautiful and true. But let's say you don't believe that. What do you contribute? You contribute less. In fact, you might even contribute bad things. You might even detract from this life, from civilization, from yourself, without that understanding of the mystery. It all comes down to this great mystery. As I mentioned before, even if people don't believe or understand specifically Christmas, they still want to get caught up in it. That's why they've come. That's why even the celebration of Hanukkah has changed. This Kwanzaa has come to the picture at this time of year. It's like everybody, even if they don't believe, they want to somehow get caught up in this mystery in some way that they can. It's like they'll take even the crumbs of the bread, because even the crumbs are so good because the bread is so wonderful.
Because Hanukkah wasn't a major holiday in Judaism in previous centuries.
No, it wasn't, and it was not really this custom of the gift giving and so on. Like it's almost like there's a slight imitation of what we do during Christmas, and that's okay. It's just proving the point that everybody wants to somehow get caught up in it in one way or another. You could be a total atheist, but somehow you feel kind of, there's something you feel at this time. There's something that you know is good. There's something that it's just, you just can't escape it. And people in one way or another want to get caught up in it. And that shows you how all-encompassing, how fundamental this mystery is. This great mystery, it's the DNA of the whole created order. And one of the beautiful parts about it is that we experience this mystery precisely through the fact that we're man and woman, and in the sacrament of marriage, love, and union of man and woman, and intimacy. the whole world of our sexuality, why it's beautiful and powerful, because it's a sharing in this mystery, this great mystery. We can call it the incarnation, the self-emptying, the kenosis, the condescension. But you know what else it is? It's God who created a bride for himself, mystically speaking, a bride. And he enters into relationship with that bride, into intimate relationship. And that's why ultimately, and why, going back to St. Paul, why he uses this term great mystery in context of a relationship of husband and wife and Christ to his church. Ultimately, it's about a nuptials. It's about a mystical marriage between God and his bride.
Let's go back to beauty for a second. The Germanic Swiss theologian Hans Urs von Balthasar says that beauty leads us to the divine.
Yes.
And even an atheist like Christopher Hitchens says that he couldn't live without Gregorian chant of Mozart's masses or the Chartres Cathedral. If you ever listen to him speak, I saw him at one debate. I'm actually very fond. He's probably my favorite atheist because he is a very erudite person. I mean, criticized Mother Teresa, which was disgusting, and but it became almost like a business to him being an atheist because he certainly made a lot of money with his books and that. But he's an atheist who has an appreciation for beauty and something transcendent. He even talks about transcendence, looking at the stars, reading Shakespeare, and he appreciates beauty that they see in painting, art of the Catholic Church, for example. But if there wasn't that beauty, if there wasn't that love, what kind of, like you said, what kind of society would have? Would I want to live without looking at Michelangelo or Raphael or whatever, or Salvador Dali, or not listening to a mass by Mozart or Bach or Beethoven or Handel or whoever, what kind of world would we live if we didn't have that beauty that clearly was inspired by these stories?
Yes, see, beauty, the words truth, goodness, and beauty go together that describe God. You know, you take it like, for instance, maybe someone listening is a mathematician or scientist. When they see mathematical equations, they can figure out how a lot of things come together in the universe. You know, you're a physicist, you're a scientist, you're a mathematician. They actually find a beauty in that. They find a beauty in that order of things. So beauty is not just in the obvious things like we talk about in terms of like the arts. Arts is very much a manifestation of beauty, of course. But beauty exists, and people can perceive this in every aspect of life. They see, because what they're perceiving is an order. And that order somehow, when we perceive it, whether it's science, math, the way molecules come together, the way, protons and neutrons and atoms, and the way the scientists can look at these things, or physicians, medical people, biologists, what they see strikes them. And why they love it, why they go into that, because it's striking them as beautiful. These combinations, this order that comes together, and still has a mystery. Even though they're scientists, what's attracting them to it is the mystery that they're perceiving in this beauty. And often you mention an atheist. I've never come across an atheist that ever convinced me they were really an atheist. There's really no such thing as an atheist. I mean, people say they are, but as you just mentioned, Christopher Hitchens, he can speak and articulate in a very erudite manner about beauty. If you didn't, I once talked to an atheist who was kind of well known, and I once spoke to him, and I read some poetry he wrote, and I said to him, you know something? What you're writing here is just a hair away from first-rate Catholic mysticism. And he was like surprised that I said that, because what he was doing was he was writing this poetry about his sense of beauty. Now, the difference between an atheist and someone who's a believer is really just a hair. It's a hair of connection. It's almost like a nerve synapse. The connection that this beauty, we conclude, and we say this beauty points to a beautiful being, an ultimate being, and we'll admit that and accept that and live in relation to that being. But the atheist oftentimes perceives the same beauty, even more so oftentimes than a believer. That's oftentimes why they claim to be an atheist, because they're seeing something the believer isn't, so they think the believer and their belief system is wrong.
Well, William Butler Yeats said that you couldn't be an atheist and read the works of Sophocles, Homer, and Shakespeare. That you can't be an atheist and see that this is divine beauty.
Right.
But let me focus on another aspect because we don't have a lot of time left. Love. So without love, you're not going to have soup kitchens, homeless shelters, food pantries, AIDS hospices, and all the other things that Christians have done over the ages in terms of hospitals, libraries, orphanages, because that's sense of service. So in a more secular, humanist, maybe social Darwinian worldview, if they're poor, maybe that's because some Darwinian process, or if they're sick, that might be some Darwinian process. So we should just leave them be, which has been in past societies and even somewhere. So with love, that's the only way that you have that service to others, through love.
Right.
Because where else are you going to get it? What else is the motivation
Right.
to go take your time and work in a soup kitchen or a homeless shelter?
Exactly, see? And love is a mystery. Love is invisible. You can't put love in my hand, Frank. I can't put love in your hand. I can't put love in the hand of a viewer, not love itself. But what we can do is we can incarnate that love. And so love is this mystery, but it gets incarnated in actions and things and symbols and representations and deeds and so on. But the love itself is a mystery that's beyond us. And without that, there is nothing. You know?
And isn't the ultimate meaning of Christmas love that God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, but God so loved the world that He became incarnate as man in the second person of the Trinity?
The ultimate, most incomprehensible act of love. That's why it's called the one. I use add the term one. The one great mystery. The one and only great mystery. Because nothing can surpass this kind of love.
And the love that flows out of the birth of Christ also is represented in us giving gifts, and having family dinners, loving the family, loving our children, loving our friends.
Right.
And that's the joy of Christmas. Because even though there is a lot of commercialism, materialism, I think that most people still have some special meaning of Christmas. I know that suicides are high during times of holidays, but that's because the person is disconnected from something.
Right.
But still, most people, I think, have a sense that there's something special in Christmas. Even if they don't fully believe in every theological formulation of...
They do. And that's the power of this mystery, that the people get caught. It's like fallout. It's like a holy radioactive fallout, you know.
Because why not I just go get gifts for myself? A new car, a new boat. Why are you giving to your children and your friends?
Precisely, yeah. They sense this, and this gift giving, this wanting to do that, is it's incarnating the incarnation. It's incarnating it in their life, the incarnation. The giving gift is sharing in God's gift to us.
Aren't we also giving a gift to the baby Jesus when we give to each other?
Yes, because
like the Magi?
Just as Christ said, what you do to each other, you do to me. Right? It's a kind of a participation in that presence, that feature of the Magi in the story.